All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're about to see some of the best speakers in the world. Would you please welcome them now to the stage? Dr. Peter Diamandis, Nolan Bushnell, Scott Anthony, Larry Marshall, and Dr. Alan Finkel. Give them a rousing round of applause as they parade their way around the function and entering the stage like true professionals as they are. Eloquent, erudite, tremendous. Look at lovely manners from Peter and Nolan, waiting for everyone to be here. Larry's got a present for me. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Just take a seat just one moment. Now, I'm just going to make these gentlemen sweat for one more minute because I want them to feel inspired by what we're next about to attempt to do. How can humans compete with a machine that can compose, diagnose, and smell a rose? I'm going to put part of that question to our gorgeous accompanist and pianic maestro. I've just invented a term, pianic manic maestro. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome to the stage Joe Kendamo, one of Australia's finest. Now, Joe, your challenge in the next 2 minutes is to play something a machine could not compose, based and inspired on the famous composition made famous by 2001: A Space Odyssey, Thus Spake Zarathustra. Ladies and gentlemen, an improvised performance composition by Joe Kendamo. Joe Kendamo, ladies and gentlemen. How wonderful. Eat your heart out, machines. All right, ladies and gentlemen on the stage, I have a disruption to the proposed schedule that we were going to do, suggested by Dr. Peter Diamandis himself. How about we do this? Each of the speakers are going to make 3 predictions, and I want you to interact with your comments and your questions to the speakers on the Zeetings app. We also have a roving microphone, so please don't be shy. Yell out if you must speak up. Dr. Diamandis has humbly proposed that you each do one prediction, and then your second, and then your third. Gentlemen, agreed?
Do we have a choice at this stage? That sounds like a great plan.
I just want to check something. Are you John Watson or Tom Watson?
I'm whoever you want me to be, Larry.
Well, imagine you're Tom Watson then.
The golfer.
The inventor of the computer. No.
The CEO of CSIRO, ladies and gentlemen, Larry Marshall. Your incredible brain. It's not about me, though. It's not about me. All right. Well, in that case, let us start with you, Dr. Diamandis, with your very first prediction.
So I predict in 10 years' time, it'll be very commonplace. In fact, it'll be the norm that you're going to allow an artificial intelligence, an AI, to listen to every conversation you have, to read every email that you write, to look at what you eat, to look at anything that you might consider intimate and secret, because while it's doing that for you, the value proposition of the benefits you get from disclosing that information to the AI is so high that people will be able to do without, and they will have this AI being able to support them in every decision that they make. So you're going to open up your entire world to an AI in 10 years' time.
Just repeat your very first sentence again.
In 10 years' time, it will be commonplace for you to disclose everything, your conversations, your emails, everything you're doing to an AI that's listening and taking note to support your decision processes throughout the day.
Fabulous. Now, if you have a question or comment to make about that, we have a hand up the back. Is there a microphone? I'm sorry, I can't see anything. This is a microphone. Go right ahead.
It is the microphone.
Thank you. Please.
No, this is the microphone for questions.
Great, go ahead. Thank you. You're on the air. Oh, I see.
She's a volunteer.
Oh, thank you very much.
With a question.
With a question.
Well,
There's one over the back. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, no Sherlocks here.
Next prediction.
It's working.
My wish is for a microphone that worked. I think your assumption is based on the fact that we make rational decisions, and I'm not sure that we do. Will I make love this afternoon? I'm not sure that's rational.
So,
Some of the questioners are more lubricated than some of the other questioners. No one told me that this was an innovation, creativity, and drinking conference. But I accept the comment. Do you have any rebuttal? Brilliant. Good. I've got a couple of comments here already. It's already happening. AI is used to read our emails and provide advertising that corresponds to our emails. So that's one way in which it's already happening.
And let's not forget the NSA.
yes.
Another comment, not hard to believe, 6 years ago, no one trusted Facebook, and look at them now, they all trust it.
Yeah, but I just...
Nolan, why don't we go right ahead with your very first prediction, please?
In 10 years, 70% of local vehicular traffic will be accomplished by autonomous vehicles, i.e. the self-driving cars.
Yay, can't wait.
Those people who are lubricated are clapping very hard.
You can get hammered and make it home.
Safely.
Excellent. More people are getting on board as it dawns on them, the beauty of the driverless car. Any response to that? In how many years, Nolan?
10.
In 10 years. How many? What's the percentage?
What? 70%.
70%. 70%
Of the
in
miles.
10 years.
Of the miles per.
That's incredible.
Or kilometers.
That's-
I forget which you do here.
Yes, Scott, please.
So in 10 years' time, all the predictions you hear tonight will be wrong. Everybody is very bad at predicting the future. In all seriousness, to get ready for this, I'm not a futurist at all, so I do what I always do when I don't know the answer to a question I ask my kids. So for each one, I'm going to give 3 answers. They'll be quick, don't worry. So my daughter, Holly, the first thing she said, she's 7 years old, she said 10 years from now, there will be different kinds of toys. Probably true. My son, Charlie, who's 9, said in 10 years, I will get into a car, talk to it, and it will tell me where to go. Which I thought was pretty impressive for a 9-year-old. The thing that I will say at a broad trend around innovation, we talk a lot about how quickly companies grow today. But if you look at the Fortune 500, in the US at least, from 2014, there is only one company that is 10 years old or less, and that's Facebook. That's only one company that's managed to get big enough to get on the Fortune 500. This still takes a long time. I predict 10 years from now, there will be 50 companies on the Fortune 500 that do not exist today.
That's incredible. And I might say that the Zeetings people, Tony and Chelsea, are perhaps capturing some of these predictions, and we can put them into a poll question a little bit later on. All right? Tremendous. Larry, how about you? A prediction, please.
I'd like to pick up on the common theme here. So you've got a bunch of old guys up here trying to talk about the future, but the future's invented by
Have you seen my red shoes?
by the youth. So I have a poll question, if I can have the Zeetings people put it up. If we can have that question come up.
Can we have Larry's question, guys, if you're ready? Is this your question, Larry?
Yeah, so it turns out I ran into this young guy in the audience earlier today who was the winner of the Prime Minister's Science Prize, and it struck me that he's the youth and he's the brains, and probably he should be answering some of these questions, and I'd like to get the audience's opinion on that.
I wish theatre reviews were like that. You're able to increase it by half a star every now and again. Excellent. Thank you, Larry.
So while Matthew's coming up, hopefully, the data centre. So in the next 10 years, the data centre will change completely. There will be very little electronics in the data centre and mostly optics. It'll use about 10,000 times less electrical power than it does today. It will have almost no latency so that it will serve up video almost instantly, and it will have at least 1,000 to 10,000 times more raw capacity than it does today. And it'll be about 1/10 of the physical footprint and still deliver all of the other multiple expansions in those dimensions. And that will be the basis of true associative memory and the beginning of parallel processing, which is, of course, the basis of the human brain.
Lovely. Now, would you like to hear Anthony speak? Would you like to hear Anthony speak?
Or even
Matthew.
Matthew.
You can call me Anthony, though, that's all right. I had one thought about this. Maybe it's a career-limiting question to ask, but if a computer can know all the knowledge that's ever been done, can think, can hypothesize, in 10 years' time, will there even be scientists and innovators? Why do we even need them? We'll just be able to know what the best opportunities are by a computer telling us. We'll just need to have technicians, won't we? So I'll be unemployed in 10 years? That'll be good?
No.
Not going to happen.
I'll add one comment on that. Having worked in biological sciences, neurosciences in particular, the thing that I've noticed is a truism, is that biology is always much, much more complicated than we think. And whilst you can predict with Moore's law that computers will be 1,000 times more powerful 10 years from now, what I can guarantee you is 10 years from now we'll only understand less than 1% of the human brain.
That's right, and I think we all know of the greatest examples of discovery.
So we'll still need scientists, sorry.
That's right, because one of the things we do really well is make mistakes. Some of the best discoveries I've made were not on purpose, and we only have to think of penicillin, and we could go on and on about things that are fortuitous, and I don't know how we could predict those.
Dr. Alan Finkel, I believe it's time for your first prediction.
So on the theme of young people and what they should be thinking about, if I was a young person today, I'd be worrying about whether I would have a job, which is really taking off from Matthew's point, whether I would have a job 10 years from now. And a lot of the pundits are saying there'll be no jobs. Steve Wozniak, Bill Gates, Stephen Hawking, Elon Musk, they're all saying that automation and robots are going to cause permanent displacement of jobs and unemployment that will just grow and grow. The thing is, though, that these kinds of predictions have been made time and time again, going back to Ned Ludd, the Luddites, John Maynard Keynes in 1930. Again and again, they predicted technological unemployment, and it never happens. 3 or 4 years ago, some famous MIT economists predicted that there would be permanent unemployment, and with a lot of graphs to show why it would be happening. That was in 2011, and in 2011, unemployment in America was 10%, and now it's 5.7%. So in 4 years, they got it completely wrong. Somehow, because of human innovation, we will create new jobs to replace all those jobs that the robots will take. So I'm an optimist.
Here, here. Thank you, Alan. Now, we do have a question in the audience over there. I saw a hand up, but just before we go to that question, I'm seeing lots of comments on the Zeetings, and you can follow them all, and you can continue to follow them all in the days following. Some of the comments I can't really mention, but let me just say, I'm hearing you, sisters. Don't worry about that. Message received loud and clear. I'm having my operation tomorrow. But we have had a fabulous comment I do want to highlight. Prime Minister and science, 2 words that usually don't go together, which is quite fabulous. I'm hearing you, sister. We do have an audience question over there, is that right? There was someone waving their hands?
Yes.
Yes, please, sir.
With regard to automation, automation has been occurring quite recently, and I don't think it's unreasonable to say that humans haven't necessarily recognised the speed at which automation has been occurring. Therefore, do you think it really is reasonable to assume that automation isn't going to occur before we, as a society, even a global society, given how connected we are, actually have the capacity to alter the way that work happens and the way that we perceive day-to-day work, full-time work, in order to actually line up with the way that automation is occurring, line up with the way that technology is assisting our work process. I feel like automation is occurring a lot faster than we are able to recognise the necessity and the use of technology at the moment.
Anyone care to have a stab at that?
Yeah, I think this has been a common theme since the introduction of the typewriter and the assembly line, and I'll apologise because Matthew suggested these things to me earlier, and a couple of interesting statistics. So the quote that Matthew gave me was literally, and I'll read it to you, the typewriter will cost men their jobs by letting women into the workforce. God forbid. And yet, I mean, that was the perspective back then. Look how much we've evolved, or at least I hope we've evolved.
Look at how much we're starting to evolve.
The difference with humans and computers, a computer will continue to process the wrong data in the wrong way to provide the wrong solution completely mindlessly until we tell it to stop or to do something different. Humans have this amazing ability, this entrepreneurial alchemy to adapt. So I would argue almost to the limit of any technological change that we create that seems to threaten jobs, we will invent our way around it. We'll turn it into leverage that will enable new jobs or make us more efficient. The other example Matthew gave me was the assembly line with Henry Ford, where he was able to reduce the time to build a car from 12 hours down to 93 minutes. There was absolute rioting because the fear was that Ford would lay off all the production workers or at least cut their pay because they were working less hours to produce the same amount of cars. In point of fact, they reduced from 9 hours to 8 hours a day, and Ford doubled their pay through the efficiencies realised by technology, and just basically produced more cars and fed a growing market. So I think this is an old issue. It will be an issue that's with us for all time. I think we're in a wonderful dance with technology. Sometimes technology seems to take the lead. Sometimes, I think always we end up taking the lead back and defining our own future using technology as an ally and a tool, not as a controller.
And I guess the thing that I always wonder about this issue, there's an underlying theory that we operate against, which is we need to all have jobs, or a certain percentage of the population needs to have jobs. And that's just the way that economies work, right? Because you need to have jobs, and that generates gross domestic product. That leads to taxes. Those can be redistributed, et cetera, et cetera. What if that theory's wrong? Well, what if automation takes over? What if that robot does everything and we're free to do something completely different? And we would need to think and have a conversation about what that is and how to make sure that that's productive and not destructive. But imagine what that would be like if you didn't have to, if nobody had to, if we were able to produce in a world of abundance everything we needed without all the people wasting all their time doing all the stupid things we do at our jobs today, at least at companies other than mine.
Scott, I'm just going to grab one more comment from Peter, and then I'm going to move on. Peter, you wanted to say something?
Just to echo that point, I mean, the concept of a job is a rather recent invention by humanity. You know, where you work, when you ask somebody, what do you do? Your response is not, you know, I'm a mother, I'm a father, I live here. It's like, this is my job. We take so much ego gratification and importance to that. But the fact of the matter is, for most of the world, at least in the United States, 70% of people, according to Gallup, hate their job, right? They're working to put food on the table, to get insurance, to get a paycheck, not because it's their mission and purpose in life. And I do believe we are heading towards a world of technological socialism, where technology will meet our basic needs. It will educate us, it'll give us our health care, it'll provide us the things that we need. Now the question is, what could we do with that extra time, to your point? Perhaps it's follow our passions. Perhaps it's teach our children. Perhaps it's many of those things. But I think we're going to be finding that out in the next 10 or 20 years.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm just going to put a little bit of heat onto the Zeetings people right now. Do we have a polling question based on the predictions we've heard so far, just to see how our erudite, eloquent, and educated and illiquidated audience has responded? Do we have a polling question? I think it's coming soon. Here we go. What high-stakes operations would you most like to see assumed by robots? Vote now. A, commercial pilot. B, football coach, although some would say we already. C, school teacher. D, comedian. Commercial pilots, you would put your life in the hands completely. We almost already do with automatic pilots, but a completely mechanized cockpit and crew. Comedian. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's very kind of you. All right, I'm going to jump forward now. Dr. Peter Diamandis, do you have your prediction number 2?
In 10 years, we will have a disruption of today's conventional healthcare system. It will no longer exist. We will make the individuals the CEOs of your own health. You'll see a human doctor walking towards you, and you'll say, no, 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 I do not want that human touching me. I want the robot that's done it perfectly every single time.
right on to Nolan.
Mine's actually similar. I believe that we will have a cure absolutely for 95% of all cancers.
95. Well, we're liking that one very much indeed. Scott, have you spent all yours?
Oh, no. I've just begun.
Excellent.
So
Number two.
I've got 9. I've got 3 for each of my kids, or the older kids, and then 3 for me. So Holly's second one, first one was there'd be different toys. You could see the creativity spikes in this one. Next, she thought there would be different furniture. So that's Holly's contribution. Charlie went from the car that he could talk to that would take him places to, in 10 years, he predicts that he will have a robot butler, which I think is actually a pretty good prediction again. Whatever they're doing to Charlie in school and all the Minecraft he's playing, I think is paying off. My prediction goes to the other side of what it takes to be a big company. So I talked about, last point, how there would be more companies that are big that don't exist today. There is a paradox that I think is taking place right now on the inverse of that. Everyone talks about how big companies are dead, yet the half-life of the Fortune 500 in 1995 was 12 years. That's how long it took before half of those companies were off the list. The half-life of the Fortune 500 from 2005 is going to be 15 years. It's longer, not shorter. So my prediction is the batch of companies that are on the Fortune 500 in 2015, I predict the half-life of that group is going to be 30 years. I think big companies, paradoxically, are going to live longer, not shorter, because they are going to figure out how to grab hold of disruption and use it as an opportunity as opposed to be ripped apart by it.
That's a bold prediction, Mr. Anthony. Very bold indeed. Thank you very much. Larry Marshall.
So I'd just like to pick up on your point about the medicine and the robotic intervention. So I don't know if you can see this, but this is a 3D printed titanium heel bone that's an exact replica of a Melbourne man's heel who had bone cancer. And we produced this, and a physician inserted it in order to save his leg. The leg was going to be amputated because of the cancer. And this 3D printed titanium implant, custom made to that person's heel, saved their leg. It's kind of an interesting example to your point about artificial intelligence, machining capability. That's not my prediction, by the way. My prediction is, back to the optical data center. So I mentioned that would enable associative memory. One of the big barriers to true artificial intelligence, or creating a computer that looks more like a brain, is this notion of parallel processing, notion of associative memory, which of course enables heuristic search. So the onset of optical-based data centers, optical-based storage, optical-based memory could open the door for true associative memory, which means things like the computer could interrogate the student through a series of questions, figure out what type of learner the student was, and completely change the method of presentation and the content of the material so that it tapped into the student's natural learning style, made a much more efficient learning basis. Another example would be it would enable people to actually communicate with their computers, because one of the problems when a computer tries to interpret what we say, it's all serial processing, it's all language translation, it's not parallel processing, it's not associative memory. A lot of human communication is words that associate with an idea. A computer needs to have that sort of parallel processing capability to do that. If we can talk to computers and they can understand us, and I think that will happen over the next decade, then that opens the door for single-purpose, focused, customized robots that respond to us and do basic tasks and can even learn from their interaction with us how to do the tasks better. And another piece of that, and then I'll finish, it's a rather long prediction, the optical sensing technologies. I think robots will have every imaginable sensor, optical, audio, smell. They'll be able to sense the presence of humans and will become the critical dynamic in their interaction with the world. That's critical because you can't empower robots to operate autonomously or vehicles unless they're 110% aware of humans. and able to react to them and predict what they might do to avoid accidents. The dream of autonomous vehicles will die very quickly the first time a human is hit by a autonomously driven vehicle. So it's really important that that technology is right before it's unleashed on the world.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you very much. Alan.
I think one of the big challenges going forward with computers and automation is fear that people will have of things that go awry, whether it's autonomous vehicles having accidents, medical diagnosticians, computer diagnosticians delivering an incorrect diagnosis, or that device that you talk to and share all your intimate thoughts with and all your private information, leaking that information in a way that you wouldn't like. And the solution to that is, and I say this almost with a heavy heart, is regulation. We are going to need a lot of regulation in this area of computers. And that can both be a strength and a weakness. The strength is that it will give people confidence, security in the implementation of that technology. The weakness is the regulation will have to be done by government, and even if government is well-meaning, and some might dispute that, but even if government is well-meaning, it's a difficult challenge to get the parameters of that regulation right so that you enable the industry rather than inhibit it. Anyway, my prediction is there's going to be an onslaught of regulation in these industries.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. You've heard round two of the predictions. I'm going to just provoke the Zeetings people, if they have captured some of the predictions, just to pop up a polling question when you like. Whilst you're doing that, we have had one question. Thank you, CW. A question. And here, this is for you, gentlemen. With genome processing and disclosure of personal medical data, will people still be able to get medical/health insurance for diseases or conditions they are predicted to get in the future but aren't yet suffering from? While you ponder that, here we have a polling question. Would you have your personal genome met to help with your medical therapy?
That makes sense.
I think it's mapped.
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 Met, as in put it on a train and send it to a metropolitan, put it on the metro. No. Met by a butler. No. Mapped. Read?
Mapped.
Mapped. We're voting for mapped up here. Mapped. Would you have your personal genome mapped to help with your medical therapy? Most of you are saying yes. Do you believe there will be a cure for 95% of all cancers in 10 years? Wow. We just have to wait for a couple of moments until there are a few people on board voting. That is a split decision. Some slightly more negative now. All right, moving on. I'm going to move to the third prediction now. Peter, if you will.
So those of you who were here earlier heard me speak about one of the most extraordinary events happening in this next 10 years, which is that we're likely to have 3 to 5 billion new consumers coming online who have never been connected. Right, in 2010, we had about 1.8 billion people connected. Right now, there are about 2.8 billion people connected out of 7 billion on the planet. Over the next 5 years, through drones, balloons, satellites, whatever it might be, and there's billions being spent and committed, we're going to bring 3 to 5 billion new people online. So the prediction here is that those 3 to 5 billion will need banking and will need currency, and that they will drive a massive adoption of Bitcoin.
Nolan, let's have yours, your third one.
I too believe that we will have robots running around doing things. I wanted to go back and comment a little bit on unemployment. And unemployment is equivalent to saying that we have lost our dreams. And dreams are really what should drive any society. Are you able to drive through an interstate program in Africa? Not really. The amount of capital goods that need to be developed throughout the world is massive, more than enough to create a tremendous amount of employment. Would you like to travel from here to San Francisco, accelerating at 1G halfway across the ocean and decelerating?
Hang on, I'll give you my mic, Nolan.
Is that me? There we go. Accelerating at 1G halfway across to San Francisco and decelerating the other half. Clearly, you need an evacuated tube and maglev technology, and that's a hell of a lot of work. But I dream of being able to come to Australia for lunch and then go back. There's so many things that need to be done that the only way we have unemployment is if we lose our imagination and we don't deal with the friction. And the friction is that there are too many jobs for the unskilled, or too many jobs for the skilled, and not enough jobs for the unskilled. So the answer is we have to get everybody skilled. And that's sort of my second prediction, which says education will be massively disrupted in 10 years, in which everyone will be able to learn anything they want 5 to 10 times as fast for nothing.
Thank you, Nolan. Now, I'm just going to pause the debate for a moment. I'm loving what's happening here, but we do need disruption at this time. And if I can get Jordan, if you're in the room, Jordan, if Jordan's in the room, we've got George here on stage, and we want to be able to see what George can do. And apparently he's got this amazing skill. Now, the first thing we want to do is recreate a dance from a hit. Can we do that?
Oppan Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style. Oppan Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style. Oppan Gangnam Style.
Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome to the stage Tanya de Jong and Brett Kay to sing. Oh, sorry, Jonathan, that's right. I'm terribly sorry. I haven't even seen Jonathan yet today. Jonathan, up you come. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Tanya and Jonathan.
Jonathan, g'day.
So we wanted to create a momentary promotion for the robot, the age of machines, coming our way with a variation, a disruptive variation of a song you all know and love, which we have requested all over the world. This is the disruptive version of Nessun Dorma.
Getting stronger.
You see the robots coming far from the distance, removing your existence. There is no way to fight machines. At night they pull you from your dreams, yes, yes. chorus, everyone. I wonder if a Hobart can make the audience hum.
For this disruption of all we know had gone the robots all aglow. Robots
It's the baby Jesus robot.
Absolutely emotionally spent. Thank you, Jonty. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, George. Thank you, Jordan. All right, I think we were up to Scott.
I kind of thought our robot overlords were going to be bigger than that, but there you go. So very quickly, so Holly's third prediction, got a little better by the third prediction, was that many more people would live in tall buildings, which I think 10 years from now, urbanization is going to continue. It's been a huge trend, and it will lead to a lot of changes in society. Charlie's third prediction, not quite as good. He predicts the Earth will be 20% closer to the sun. A little worried about that one.
Bummed.
It's a bummer. The robots will win then. My third prediction goes to a stat that I shared during my talk this morning. I showed this screenshot from the website from Atomico that showed 156 startup companies since 2003 with more than $1 billion of value. If you dig underneath that a little bit, about 44 of those startups are based in Asia. And the thing that I predict is 10 years from now, I don't know how many billion-dollar startup companies there will be, but more than 50% of them will be based in Asia. This is where innovation is going to happen because all the people coming online are here, the creative energy is here, the people are here, and increasingly the money is in this part of the world as well. So that's mine.
So I'd mentioned the importance of sensors. I wanted to introduce you to a personal friend of mine. If anyone can guess what this is.
I'm a little worried sitting next to this.
Anyone remember the magic roundabout? So this is Zebedee. And Zebedee sits on a vehicle and he bounces around and creates a very accurate high-res three-dimensional map, digital map of any room, mine, area that it's in, and enables a vehicle, particularly a mining vehicle, to autonomously navigate through that terrain, including the presence of humans and so on, as brought to you by your national science agency, Zebedee. So, so back to the artificial intelligence question. I thought it might be useful to benchmark where we're at. So in this country, the fastest supercomputer, which is in Western Australia, which is also built and operated by your national science agency, runs at a speed of about, or has a processing capability of about 1 petaflop, which is a lot. It's increased about a factor of 800 over the last 4 years. So 4 years ago, it would take 273 days to read a petabyte of information. Today, it can do that in about 8 hours. So the progress in that area has been dramatic. If I compare that to the IBM supercomputer in Watson, it actually is 35 petaflops, which is actually roughly equivalent to the raw computing power of the human brain. Now, the difference is the human brain is a massively parallel processing machine. So the Watson computer doesn't mimic that yet, but it does have the raw compute power. However, it uses 12 gigawatts, or a small power station, to do that, compared to the human brain, which runs on about 30 watts. So there's quite a few orders of magnitude in between where we are today and where the brain is today. My prediction is that based on the exponential rate of increase of the capacity of that supercomputer and this one, which will be the heart of the square kilometre array when we build it, that it's possible within the decade to have something a lot closer to a human brain in Watson. The difference is it'll still be the size of 1 or 2 football fields, and it'll still take a few power stations to drive it. I think the power problem, even with optics, even with parallel processing, can be a really hard one to crack.
Okay. So thinking about the massive improvements that Larry was just talking about that we're going to see in processing of power, a lot of them have happened because of what's called Moore's Law, the continuous improvement in electronic and software technology. But some of the more recent breakthroughs manifested in Watson and newer artificial intelligence computers are based on chips that mimic the human brain. They use neural networks. So we've actually learnt from neuroscience how to make more effective architectures for computers, and that's been to great advantage and part of the reason why computers are leaping ahead at the leading edge. And so I would predict based on that we're going to be able to analyse things in the same way that people can, where those things are the kinds of predictable analyses that we understand. So we'll be replacing bankers and maybe academicians, insurance brokers, and maybe taxi drivers. But our understanding of the brain has never gotten, in all the years that we've been working on the brain, has gotten nowhere near understanding creativity, love, consciousness, or any of those things. And so we have nothing to mimic to go to that next step. So I would predict that we'll lose all those extraordinary high-end jobs in the next 10 years, but it will take at least 50 years to replace comedians.
Don't look at me, I'm just doing what I'm told. Thank you, Alan. That gives me some hope. All right, I think I'm going to wrap up very, very soon. But if the Zeetings people have any final polling on the predictions that we've had from our guest speakers tonight, I do want to, and maybe this touches on something that Alan just said, and please chip in any of our panelists, if you will. A question from CK. Do you think an artificial intelligence will ever laugh or love?
So I wanted to pick up something that on something that Alan said, and it sort of answers the question, but not really, so sorry. I was curious what would happen if I asked the supercomputer a question. What answer would it give? And so I asked it 2 questions. I asked it to translate a phrase into Russian and then back into English. And it was quite fascinating. So the phrase that, the target phrase was, the flesh is weak, but the spirit strong. The computer translated that into Russian and then re-inputted the Russian and translated it back into English, and it came out as, the meat is rotten, but the vodka lovely. So I guess even supercomputers have got a way to go. The other question I asked is a much more fundamental one, which is, how do we, in a consistent way, reverse entropy? And it ticked and whirred and didn't do much for a while, and then it came out with Genesis 1. And obviously somebody who programmed it had a real sense of humour, because of course it's reversing entropy is the Big Bang, creation, let there be light. So can a computer laugh? No, but the humans that program it sure can have a funny sense of humour sometimes on their boss.
Thank you very much, Larry. Wonderful. Do you want to pop up that Zeetings question one more time? And we'll just have a look at that. the one that you just had a moment ago, little Zeetings question. 2 years from now, answer this question, those Zeetings folk, because I can see the desserts are coming out. 2 years from now, my smartphone and I will enjoy debriefing on the way home from the Creative Innovation 2017 dinner. That is a split decision at the moment as well. That's fabulous. Ladies and gentlemen, I can see the dessert is coming out. Would you please thank our panelists, our lovely guest speakers, and we'll be back with more in just a moment. Thank you very much, gentlemen.